What is up, Dodgers Nation? Doug McKain here, credential member of Dodgers Media. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And welcome to another episode of Dodgers Dugout Live, the number one Dodgers podcast and show on YouTube. If you haven't yet, do us a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and hit that like button. And today we've got a special guest, the premier Japanese baseball reporter, Mr. Jim Allen joins the show. You can follow him on X. You can go to his blog. We'll drop the link to his website down below. He's joining us at midnight Tokyo time. Jim, thank you so much for the time, my man.
Well, thank you very much.
Of course, we're bringing you on to talk Roki Sasaki because we've heard about Roki Sasaki for so many years. The big question is, when will the Chiba Lotte Marines post him? Now, there was some talk that last offseason he tried to get out, try to get posted. Why don't we start right there? Is there any truth to that?
Not that I know of. There's been kind of a smear campaign against him for wanting to be different. And I think we saw the roots of that when he turned pro, because basically he met with 11 of the 12 Japanese teams, and everybody came away saying, this guy is so amazing. This guy is so amazing. And then only 4 teams the Japanese draft is the first round is a blind draft. Everybody picks a player. And then if multiple teams pick the same player, they stand up on a stage and they draw lots, and the team drawing the proper lot gets the negotiating rights, and the other guys go back and play go fish basically. So only 4 teams chose him, and 2 of the conspicuously absent teams were ones that have not really made use of the posting system. So it was pretty clear and clear from his interest in MLB from when he was in high school, according to the scouts that I had spoken to from a number of MLB teams, that he was interested in MLB. He didn't want to go straight out of high school because it would have cost him the summer of his the peak part of his senior high school season, which the National High School Baseball Championships in Japan are huge. They're like March Madness. And he didn't want to miss that chance. So he opted first for NPB. Anyway, so 4 years later, this story came out that he wanted to be posted last year. And nobody had told me that. Everybody had said, we're hearing he might be available in 2024. Now, I at first considered it a rumor because it didn't make sense. Because for the obvious reason that he stood to lose maybe $50 million guaranteed, $100 million, $150 million, whatever. He stood to lose $100+ million for a chance to go as a pitcher at the age of 23. And so I didn't believe it, but when I heard the agency that was connected with his post, that was telling the teams, if it had been Scott Boras, I wouldn't have bought it. Not because Scott Boras always lies, but Scott Boras says things that are in Scott Boras's best interests and not always in the player's best interests. So when I heard the agency that was connected to him, I thought this is a reputable person saying this. So I thought 2024 was possible. I reached out. I was told no. We can't say anything, and then we know now who it was. But last year was a surprise, and I think it was. I have no idea how that rumor came out that he wanted to be posted last year, but there was a kind of a war of words going on apparently between him and the Marines about the language of his agreement that was going to allow him to be posted.
Yeah, that's what I want to touch on next, because ultimately he does get posted, and there's a lot of talk that maybe he does get that agreement with the Chiba Lotte Marines, something similar to what Shohei Ohtani had a couple years ago, way back in 2018, when ultimately he gets posted and he says, okay, when I want to go to the show, you guys have to let me go. Ultimately, do you think that is what led to this? Was some agreement that they had with Roki back before he signed in the time frame that you're talking about that ultimately said, yeah, we're going to let you go? And yes, the Marines haven't officially posted him yet, and that's one of the biggest next things we're waiting for. But do you think that is what went into them ultimately deciding that that's what they're going to do?
Well, what happened? I think the agreement was, now the way these agreements work is every Japanese contract has a checkbox on it, and if the box is checked, it means there's an additional contract that stipulates things that we're not telling people. And every player who has a lot of leverage when they sign with a team will have that box checked. They'll get something. The problem is, because a player demanding this of his team is would be, well, first of all, these contracts are essentially never made public. They're private between the team. They're not overseen by the commissioner's office. They're not overseen by the union. It's basically the player, his lawyers, the team, their lawyers. And nobody wants to spill the beans because they can be embarrassing. So I think we'll never ever know what's in the Roki Sasaki agreement, because it doesn't serve anybody's best interest. Okay, so these agreements can have anything in them. And I certainly believe that Yu Darvish had one, and Masahiro Tanaka had one, and Shohei Ohtani definitely had one, because he had all the leverage in the world. He had so much leverage that he could essentially get a Japanese team to let him be a two-way player in a country where being a two-way player was considered like, I don't know, like going out and having yourself be a guinea pig in an infectious disease experiment. Nobody wanted to deal with it. It was just a hassle, so they came out with that plan to keep him. So that's the leverage he had. They were doing everything to keep him. So he had some kind of agreement. It was never said when. But in Ohtani's case, the team was going to be compensated as much as they would have been had he been 25, which was $20 million at that time. So, or at least as much as they would have been compensated the year before, even though he went on a minor league contract. In Sasaki's case, that is not true. So people in Japan went like, why are the Marines doing this? And the answer is very obvious. The Japanese draft, if you don't sign your player, if you don't sign a player in the draft, you don't get a compensation pick next year. You don't get anything. You get stuck. So by agreeing to post Roki Sasaki and hoping to convince him to stay, and I think this is what was happening last winter. They were trying to convince him not to go before he was 25, how it was not in his best interest. And I think that was the whole thing. I think this whole thing was set up last year, and that's why he did the holdout. And that's why the difficulty was, he wants to go this year. That's why. So I don't think that was the case, but the Marines were in a situation where they could say no, which people argued they never, they of course would have done. But if they had done that, they would have given up 4 years of this incredible money-making, profit-making, publicity machine. The Marines made millions and millions and millions of dollars off of Roki Sasaki. So people are saying they got, they're losing money. They're not losing anything. They made a profit off him. But what they're not getting is the huge windfall.
Yeah, and that's kind of my next question. I mean, you saw what the Oryx Buffaloes were able to get from the Dodgers after the Dodgers signed Yamamoto, over $50 million. You talk about that financial windfall. Why would the Marines do this if they didn't have to, right? I mean,
no reason
you look at Sasaki. He could make $200, $300+ million if he waits a couple seasons. If you look at the team, the Chibalote Marines, they can make $50+ million for that posting fee. Really, the only team financially that this helps for is a team that's going to sign, like the Dodgers or whatever team ends up with them. They'll get a ace level pitcher potentially under 6 years of control, 3 minor league seasons, 3 years of arbitration for less than $10 million. So the question I have is, why exactly would the Marines do this?
They had no choice. Their choice was, as I said, either, hopefully, they had a good chance. I mean, it would make perfect sense for every, especially a pitcher. I'm of the mind that if you're a batter, it would be very advantageous to go when you're 23, because you don't see you can't select the pitches. You can't select the pitches that MLB pitchers are going to throw you. You can't say, "Oh, you guys got to pitch the way they pitch me in Japan," and they pitch differently, and the timing, the mechanics are different, deliveries are different, the angles are different, the speed, the velocities are different. Everything's different, and if you're going to be catching up to that speed and catching up to those differences, you want to be more of an equivalent age of most guys when they go through to MLB. And not 25, 26, 27, like Hideki Matsui, who had a remarkable career for a guy who didn't go to MLB until he was almost 30. So the advantage for a hitter, I think, is really there. I think the advantage for a pitcher is less, but that's just my thinking. And I'm going to have to say that that's probably the reason. If he's going to pass up $50 to $200 million, but let's say low ball, let's say $50 or $100 million low end. He's got to be doing it because he thinks that extra 2 years will be better for him than the money. Okay, so I think that's the most obvious. Everybody, you have to understand, to some degree, Japanese baseball works. It's set to a slightly different clock than MLB. MLB, everything's about whose contract is the best, who has the most average, the average earned per year, who has the best incentives, who has the most opt-out clauses. It's like I don't know. It's almost it's like a game itself. It's a competition, and it's a competition among the teams who does the best at doing the best contracts. In Japan, it's like it's a little softer and fuzzier, a little more loyalty based, a lot more loyalty based, and so the idea that you're going to go somewhere because you're going to make an extra $150 a year to tone it down is sort of no. In Japan, the loyalty has a lot more value, and that's not always necessarily because it's a positive thing. It's so often because there's an ostracism factor involved for people who, as we saw this past year with Roki Sasaki, when it became clear that he wanted to go to MLB and he wasn't progressing this year. He became the target. Basically, everybody came out and said, well, he's worthless, weak, he's a whiner, he's a complainer. A year ago, he was a victim of evil people behind the scenes. And then this year, when his season looked a lot like his previous season, and he wasn't taking a step forward after all this big talk about MLB, they basically turned on him.
See, that's fascinating to me, the kind of the driving forces. And you mentioned the culture difference as far as how it's viewed in Japan versus here. We live in the Scott Boras world of Major League Baseball with big agents, and it's about how much money you can get. Teams go to the highest bidder. When they say it's not all about the money, they usually mean it's all about the money here in Major League Baseball, right? But it's a different thing. I mean, here it's you just want to be on that bottom ticker. X player signs a new record deal. X player signs for this team. In Japan, as you mentioned, it's a totally different story. But I think the next big step, the next big domino to fall in the Roki Sasaki signing saga is, when will he officially be posted? Now, whenever the Marines do eventually post him, Sasaki will have 45 days to decide which team he's going to sign with. Now, Is it possible that that's going to carry into 2025? It looks like it is. Major League Baseball's signing period for international amateurs goes from January 15th to December 15th every season, and teams commit the vast majority of that money on January 15th, and they finalize those contracts that have been verbally agreed upon with the players well in advance. Question I have is, what sense are you getting as far as, one, when the Marines are going to post him, and two, how big of a factor do you think that is in this, with you opening this up to other teams that will have that money back to really level the playing field? Because we know the Dodgers, they have the most at the moment for the current signing period, but if you wait and they post him for the next one, more teams could be involved. But what's your sense of when it'll be posted and how big of a factor that will be?
Well, I think they'll post him. There was some wrangling. I understand there was some wrangling before the final announcement was made. And the Marines apparently had some conditions. They asked Roki, we would like you to do it a certain way. And if he agreed to them, those terms, they would do it his way. And my guess is his way will be to maybe be posted on the last day, the 15th of December or thereabouts, so that, and now every team knows what their plans are. Every team knows that he'll be available before or after, and they can go to him and they say, this is our best deal. If you wait till the 16th, we can give you this. If you're the Dodgers, maybe they'll say, if you do it before the 15th, he's going to weigh the best packages regardless of when they happen, because he'll have he can sit on both sides of that fence. But again, I don't think the money is going to be the main thing. And this is the funniest thing, is that on Twitter, basically hundreds of people came out of the woodwork to say, of course he's going to go where all the money is. Because I'm saying, if that was the case, he wouldn't be going if money was his primary motivating factor, he wouldn't be going when he's 23. It's got to be something else. My take on that, he wants to be the best. He took a page out of Shohei Ohtani. He says, I want to go to America right now because it's the best thing for me in my baseball career and my desire to be the best player in the world. And he said essentially the same thing. And if, as I said, wrote on my blog, if you're 10 years old and your father and your grandparents die in a tsunami, you may have a different outlook on life than most of us. So, he said something at the statement that the Marines released when they made the announcement, was that, my time in baseball is precious, and I want to make the most of it. So, why would you think that the money is, a $500,000 in signing bonus is going to outweigh all the things he's giving up to come at the age of 23? It's just silly to me. Now, people have said there have been rumors that it was the Dodgers, and I don't want to add to that. But people connected with him say, yeah, that was rumors, and some of it was done maybe maliciously by an agency that wasn't able to sign him.
Interesting. So I was going to ask you that. I mean, you got Bob Nightingale. He recently said that there's a 98% chance that he's going to sign with the Dodgers. You have, on the flip side, Jim Bowden, a former GM, that says he's not going to sign with the Dodgers. I mean, does anyone know anything when it comes to this team he's going to sign with? It? What do you make of the rumor that the Dodgers are the favorites to sign him?
Well, the Dodgers have been seen. I mean, they scouted him heavily. And Andrew Friedman and Galen Kerr, is that the guy? Galen Kerr? Were seen with some of Sasaki's people in Sendai at his last game of the season. I know that because somebody who saw him there told me so. And they've been covering it. They've been covering him like paint. So I think that's the and also you have to understand every Ohtani game is on TV in Japan. When Yamamoto pitched in the playoffs in the World Series, they were on terrestrial TV, which is rare. Thus the huge numbers they had here. It's Dodgers this, Dodgers that. Every 10th person on the street wearing Dodgers stuff, which is, just bad taste. Okay. Disclosure, I'm a San Francisco Giants fan since I was a kid.
Yeah, I know this. Hey,
So,
come on now.
Okay.
It's time for you to convert, okay?
No. But I certainly understand. Basically, I think he's going to, I don't know what influences that, his connections or his desire to be with player A or player B. But I guess, he's making all these sacrifices for his career. I can't believe he's going to do it just because the Dodgers sweet talked him or, they sold him a bill of goods. If he goes to the Dodgers, and I'm not saying he isn't, and I wouldn't rule it out because now there was an article in the New York Times, I think, that said last year Kodai Senga's advertising revenue was larger than Yamamoto's, being in Shohei Ohtani's shadow. And for that reason, the Dodgers would not make sense for him if it was money. But again, I don't think it's about money. I think it's about, because no matter where he goes, he would make more money in the next 2 years in Japan than he would in MLB. So the money isn't the point. And so wherever he goes, it'll be where he is convinced will be best for his career. Now that could be the Dodgers.
And of course, that's about player development, right? Development as far as, just optimizing everything you have as a pitcher. And really, you look at where the Dodgers are at next season, going to that 6-man rotation with Shohei Ohtani returning, Yamamoto, the depth of pitchers they do have at the moment. But, there has been this talk in the last couple of seasons about Japanese superstars playing on the same team as each other. And of course, you saw Yamamoto single-handedly debunk that myth when he did sign with the Dodgers to play with Shohei Ohtani. They already win a World Series in year one. But do you think that adding a third potential superstar in Roki Sasaki would only help or hurt that type of narrative? Do you think that playing in the quote-unquote shadow of Ohtani or Yamamoto would hurt his chances of the signing with the Dodgers?
My guess is he will go where he thinks the team he'll go to the team that is best tuned in to what he's trying to accomplish and who answers the questions or asks the questions he wants to be asked. To this day, and I think, what I would like to see on Shohei Ohtani's headstone is to reveal why he signed with the Angels. He ain't telling. Maybe he'll put it in his will. He ain't telling anybody. He said it was, it was a gut feeling or this or that. His agent, I believe his agent, if his agent's not now working for Starbucks or something, doesn't actually know. I don't think Billy Epler didn't know. So we don't know, but I suspect he'll just go wherever he thinks is best. Now, and again, that could well be the Dodgers, because the Dodgers certainly have invested the time and effort into knowing the answers to the questions and knowing the right questions. They've done more of that I can't say more because you don't know who's doing this on the sidelines. I know every scout I talked to, I said, he's been kind of up and down the last 2 years. He's been this and then. They're like, so what? So what? Who cares? Just get rid of that stuff. So I think he could well go to the Dodgers because they've invested the most time and effort, and not because of any insidious predestination or his love of the Dodgers or his admiration for Shohei Ohtani. I think it'll be 100% about what the team can do for him and the environment and his connection with those people. Now, I don't know he has any connection with the Dodgers personally because although despite the rumors, technically, they're not allowed to meet him. I mean, there are rumors, but they're just rumors, and I don't want to cast aspersions on things I don't know.
Yeah,
On people I do know, sure, but not on.
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you don't want to. You get in the tampering business. We know that that's something that does happen throughout sports, so it wouldn't come as a shock to many if the deal, some type of deal, was in place with some team. Of course, I mean that happens all the time, whether people want to admit it or not. But as far as what the Dodgers can do for him and the type of pitcher that he is, I mean, the numbers are eye popping when you look at when he's at his best. Now, last season, he did average 97.1 miles per hour on his fastball. He was sitting at 99 in 2023. What do you make in the drop in velocity for him last season?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because you first write that off to he can't. You say, well, he didn't throw as hard, and then you say he can't throw as hard. And his first start of the season, he said he threw 87 pitches, I recall, and he said, but I wasn't tired at all because I couldn't throw as hard. Now, that's weird. That's almost a non sequitur, because no pitcher at the major league level throws the ball less hard than he can, at a velocity lower than he can command it. You don't do it because you got to get outs, and you want to get easier outs. So I believe, and I've written about this to some degree, that the team was effectively trying to get him to dial it down all year. They were, especially at the beginning, he had very low velocity games. After that, they became, as the season progressed, he would be sitting, instead of in the past, he'd be sitting 98. This year, he was generally sitting 95. But he'd hit it up 101, 102 when he wanted to, which is, I think, what they wanted to do. They didn't want him doing all that time. Now, the other thing I noticed from just a quick look is that he did throw more low minimum velocity pitches than he had in the past, but they were extremely effective. When he was, and I have to think that was just a cursory look. Looks like he was actually taking something off the fastball, and he was getting tremendous results with it. I mean, not a ton of, it's not a huge sample, but basically he gave up one hit. He threw, I don't know, maybe 10 of these very slow fastballs, slow for him, on 80, 89, 90, 91 or something. And he got one hit. And then on those 10 pitches, and the rest, most of them were all put in play, ground ball outs, fly ball outs. So people, I think that was part. It was what my general feeling about 2024 was, that it was a learning year, and that this is not unusual either, because I've noticed a pattern for a lot of players in Japan. The year before they intend to go to MLB, they will do things that are less about competing in NPB and more about preparing themselves to compete in MLB. And sometimes that goes disastrously wrong. So there could be a little of that. We had a guy, Kona Takahashi, who was all set to be posted now, and he, I think, went 0-9. And he's the ace of the Cebu Lions. Just a fantastic. He's still a good pitcher, but he just had terrible. He was, something physically was wrong, or he did something to him. I don't know the story. I haven't talked to him, but he was so ready to go, and now he's not going. But this is a common thing for players to have kind of off years the year more often than not.
Yeah, and you still see, I mean, when he wanted to, he could reach back and
Sure.
pump triple digits on the gun. I mean, he still's got those gloves at his back. So for me, it's not a major concern. I think the talent is undeniable. Another question people have for Roki Sasaki is the innings. I mean, he hasn't gone past 130 innings
Correct.
in a season. Last year was at 111. What do you make of his durability and just kind of the career high innings. I mean, is there anything there for you?
Well, they certainly have not pushed him. They've been the Marines manager has a master's degree in physical education and coaching. Did Masato Yoshii pitch for the Dodgers? I don't remember. Yeah, and the Mets and the Expos and Rockies. And he has a master's degree, and he's very injury prevention oriented. And his goal, he was the pitching coordinator when they signed him. He wasn't a coach, but he was the coordinator. He oversaw Sasaki's development from day one. And he said the reason he didn't pitch his first year is because the inflammation in his arm just would not go down fast enough for him to pitch in games regularly. And that was just his physical makeup. So they've been very careful about not breaking him, which is came out of course, some of the, as soon as he said he wants to play in MLB, they said, well, we've been basically giving you everything you want. What a whiner and crybaby you are, because you're not pitching 130. You're not acting like a real baseball player. But his physical, I believe his physical capabilities and properties are what they are. I think they're a little unique. He's an unusual physical specimen, and I think he needed special care, and he got special care as much as they knew about it. So I think that's the biggest explanation, is that his body is physically, he's probably still growing. His bones and ligaments are not fully mature, and the Marines have been very conscious of that.
So if anything, it should be viewed as a positive, because you still have a lot of tread on those tires and you're not fully developed. So you're getting him where he's not burnt out and they didn't drive him into the ground. So I think that's something that if you're a prospective Major League Baseball team, you got to feel pretty good about knowing that. By the way, Masato, he pitched for the Mets, the Rockies, and he also wore that sweet Montreal Expos cap. To me, it's one of the top 10 caps in the history of Major League Baseball. Now, as far as his ceiling, though, I mean, last season, people are saying, 2.35 ERA, that was the highest of his career. I'm like, that's trying to point out which is Michael Jordan's worst season with the Bulls, right? I mean, anyone would take a 2.35 ERA, but he's posted a 2.10 ERA in almost 400 innings of work. Last season, struck out almost 29% of the batters he faced, walk rate just over 7%. What do you think is his ceiling as a pitcher at the big league level? Is it multi-time All-Star, multi-time Cy Young Award winner? Could he potentially grow into becoming the best pitcher in all of Major League Baseball? Jim, just what do you view his ceiling as?
Yeah, who knows? If his physical issues are, if he's an extremely talented athlete, probably could have been a two-way player. If he had wanted, how can I say this? We don't know how, if his physical limitations stabilize and he becomes stronger and remains as flexible and learns things. There are mechanical issues that he has not mastered. And people are talking about his arm side run on his fastball as being a good thing. And I think it is, if that's what he's intending to do, but because he doesn't, and whoever said, I know a couple of people said, well, he has all this vertical hop on his fastball, but he does not. It's pretty modest. I mean, he can do it. It does happen. But I think it's inconsistent. His fastball definitely can be better. That's scary because it's fast. But right now it's fast, but it's very straight. He doesn't get lots of swings and misses, although I think that may be a factor of the fact that nobody is trying to hit his other pitches. Unless he hangs a splitter right in the middle of the zone, which he'll do from time to time. Nobody wants anything to do with the slider or the splitter. They want to just look for a fastball up in the zone that is too straight. But the result of that is he doesn't get swings and misses. He gets a zillion foul strikes. People aren't making they're not missing it. So I have to wonder I don't know, but how much of that is a factor of the style of hitters we have in Japan, where they focus on fouling off pitches and running up pitchers' pitch counts, which is a huge thing here, and how much of it is the fastball isn't that good. Because if you can get swings and misses in Japan, you can get swings and misses anywhere. And he is not the best.
But
he wasn't as good. He wasn't as good as Shota Imanaga, for example.
Gotcha. Yeah. And you look at the splitter. I mean, people talk about this splitter as one of the best splitters on the planet already, between 88 miles per hour on the gun, but it's that vertical break around 29 inches. He had a 57.1% whiff rate on that splitter in 2024. The big league average is 34.5%. Just talk to me about that splitter and how effective of a weapon that is for Sasaki.
Well, that's amazing. And I think Japanese pitchers, when they go to MLB, their splitters get better because the ball is less tacky.
Yeah.
So there's less, it's closer to that, a spitball basically throwing it. There's very little. If you're trying to not rotate the ball, it's perfect. So controlling it's a different thing, and the controlling it is going to be an issue. As Kodai Senga could tell you, he had that trouble in Japan when the ball's relatively easy to control. But yeah, the splitter is going to be fantastic. And the thing about the splitter is, again, if you're looking for a fastball, if you're looking for that 100-mile-an-hour heater, you've got, unless he really makes a mistake with a splitter and it just hangs there, you got no chance. The biggest problem is that he misses it so badly that people don't swing at it.
Yeah, no, it's just, I could watch it all day long in the highlights. So just a couple quick hitters here. Just as far as the maybe one or two biggest factors, just kind of going back to what we were saying early, is it one, what can teams do for him as far as his development and comfort, or just how do you think that ultimately plays out as far as where his decision-making is right now and the factors?
I think that's 100%. I think it's about his confidence that this team has more to offer for him and his future than the other teams. It's going to be it's very much like Shohei Ohtani. It's going to be a harder choice because Shohei Ohtani, every team came with a plan. Well, except the Boston Red Sox, who put together a package in like 36 hours, I understand. But the Dodgers told me they had a plan to get him, even in the National League, to get him like 250 at-bats in a non-DH league.
Wow.
Everybody had a plan. The Giants had a plan like that. The Cubs had a plan like that. But he still stuck with the American League team largely because of the DH. So throw that out the window, and we're only talking about who's the best. Okay, and here's another thing, because it's not always, as we learned last week, it's not always about who has the best package. It's about who communicates and how people feel about it.
The gut instinct, right?
Yep, it's got to be how. It doesn't matter if you're wrong about something. It doesn't matter if you think, if this team is actually worse for you, if they're better at communicating you and making you think that they've got what it takes, that's where you're going to go. Although Sasaki, to his credit, in the fact that he has some high-powered advisors and very, very good people around him, I think he's not going to be swayed by con artists, teams saying, "Oh, we've got all this plan for we got a concept of a plan for developing your fastball or something." So I think he's going to I think he'll make the best choice he can. It's going to be, but again, if the team can't communicate it, if they don't have somebody who can reach out to him and make a connection, then maybe he doesn't feel it. So it's not 100% about who's best, but that's sort of overall thing. I think he's a very, I just want to take him at his word. I don't understand when I watch MLB on TV and I listen to people talk, why is it that it's all, as I said, it's all dollars and cents and incremental things? Why can't we just take somebody at their word for it and let them be who they are?
And so if that's the case, then all this talk about when he is going to be posted and which posting window he's going to be in is a little less relevant if it's not about the money, right? But so,
Well, I think he does want to give every team
yeah,
a fair share and if I'm his agent, I want 30 teams giving me their best shot.
yeah. So do you anticipate him being posted in the next window, or do you think it'll be in this current window?
Well, I don't think it'll be in the current window. I don't think it's going to be December 1st because that would limit his options.
Got it.
And I don't, and if the Marines did that, that would almost be a sign that they are punishing him for something. Because the best thing for Roki Sasaki is to be posted between December 1st and December 15th.
So it's basically, get ready, teams. You're going to have your opportunity to make your pitches to Roki Sasaki, whether it be the Dodgers, the Giants, or the Rays, or the Royals. Everyone is going to have an opportunity to prove to him why they should be the organization he signs with. That's kind of the sense that I'm getting from you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I want to say the A's are out of it, but I know the A's agent scout.
Yeah, new ballpark. He'd love to go there. I mean, come on now.
I'm sure. Well, who wouldn't want to pitch in
front of 7
Sacramento?
people?
I know. Well, I love Sacramento, but I don't know if I'd want to pitch there in the heat of the summer.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But and for the A's, yeah, no, thank you for the ownership. But who knows? I know that there's their Asian Pacific Rim scout, and I know he followed Sasaki very carefully, very cautiously, and very well when he was a young guy. So who knows? But I would, I just if I were him, I'd wait 2 years because I don't have a baseball career to begin with.
And then there's also, I read on your website about the marketing company Dentsu and kind of how they could potentially have some type of influence in this decision. Do you still believe that?
I don't know if I believe it. That has been, again, that was part of the rumor. That was and it may well have been just a rumor. I think they are connected. He is connected. I've heard, but it doesn't make it true. There's a story that he signed a marketing agreement with Dentsu, and it does make sense for a young kid to make such a powerful demand against a high-powered, a team who has, typically teams have all the cards in negotiations. Sign with us or else. But here's a kid who knew exactly what he had. More so, I think, than Shohei Ohtani. He knew exactly the position he was in, and he had people behind him. I'm convinced he had people behind him giving him advice, encouraging him to hold his ground, because they can't represent him in those original negotiations, as far as I know. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if he had some sort of high-powered people behind him. I wouldn't be surprised if after Shohei Ohtani made, I think $15 to $20 million his first year with the Angels in ad money, if Dentsu didn't say, hold on, we want some of that too. And here's this kid in 2019, let's see if we can sign a deal. So they may have signed him to some sort of contract to handle his Japanese advertising. And Shohei Ohtani, who used to be nowhere in advertising in Japan, is now ubiquitous. I mean, you can't walk 5 minutes down the street without seeing Shohei Ohtani selling something.
Yeah, he's making 60, 70, 80 million dollars per year. Who knows how that's going to grow? And you got a Sasaki who really makes international news when he throws a perfect game with 19 strikeouts, then follows that up going 8 perfect in the next game. Then he's really on everyone's radar. And then you look at the stuff and just things compound. And then you see Shohei Ohtani having success. You see Yamamoto having success, and all these Japanese players in Major League Baseball right now. So yeah, it only makes sense, really. And you also talk about just kind of we're kind of looking for every single factor. I mean, you mentioned the agents and how they could be a role in this. I mean, Joel Wolf is Yamamoto's agent. There were some rumors that maybe he's involved in facilitating Sasaki's move to the show. But I mean, what do you make of that potential rumor?
I can't really say about the agent side of it.
Yeah.
So if it is Joel Wolf, if Joel Wolf, I have a high I have a very high respect for the work he's done, especially the work he's done with the Japanese pitchers. He's different. When you go to the winter meetings and you see him, the way he deals with the media is different. There's no bullshit. There's no nonsense. It's just, this is what I can tell you. This is what I'm going to tell you.
Yeah. You got to respect that.
It's 100%. This is what the player, and more in the agents I noticed at the last winter meetings were like this. The player doesn't want this, so that's where it is. It's never about what's in his best interest. It's 100% about what the player wants. And the teams tell me the same thing. There's no bullshit. And from some agents, that's quite refreshing. I mean, there are so many good agents out there now. But if it is Joel Wolf, then he will be well represented.
Now, how ultimately, Jim, do you think this plays out? I mean, do you think that this becomes some big kind of, not necessarily a bidding war, but where there's so many teams involved in the end trying to really make it that final cut of teams? Or do you think there's only a couple of teams that ultimately have an opportunity to sign him when it's all said and done? Do you have a gut instinct as to which team he ends up with? Will that be the Dodgers?
I have no idea. I mean, I just too many variables, and how he and his team will decide to manage it is, I imagine they will do as the recent players have done, is basically have a physical and his MRIs and sent to everybody, and then put them available in a Dropbox or something.
Yeah,
and then everybody can look at them and make their bid, and he will send out the parameters. These are the things I'm looking for. These are the things, these are the A questions, these are the B questions, and you figure out the rest, or whatever. However he wants to do it's how he's going to do it, and how his advisors. I think he's got powerful advisors here and in the States. I think they'll do their best to make the best decision for him. Wherever he goes will probably be, he may never say it, but again, he may never say why he picked that team.
Yeah.
Considering how well he's kept this thing under wraps. Well, nobody wants to say nobody wants to gloat in Japan about how they had the team over a barrel. That's bad. That's bad. Nobody wants to pretend like, look like Mr. Big. Nobody wants to say, I got this contract. So there are players in Japan who don't want the world to know that they're the highest paid players in Japan.
A little more private.
Well, it's not what I need. Some teams you can't avoid it. Some teams you can. But he'll do what he wants to do, and I think that's number one. Is it's not about what people think. I'm going to guess there are probably a dozen teams that are more or less perfect for him. I don't think it's really obvious. I mean, people are telling me this team, that team. I don't know. I think, but I would say that nobody knows his body like him. Nobody knows his desires like him. Nobody knows what he sees and he wants to know like him. So any speculation that he's going to be a Dodger, or he's going to be a Padre because Yu Darvish is like his godfather. That's like that's like asking Santa for presents. You can ask.
Yeah.
I mean, you can believe in that stuff if you like.
Yeah, but it's a little deeper than that. Now, last question I have for you, though, Jim, is how would you just describe how the Dodgers are viewed now in Japan with Shohei Ohtani and Yamamoto? They win the World Series. Just what is that like right now in Japan? And what would it mean for the country to add another superstar to this team and how they would be viewed in Japan?
I think it's mixed. With Yamamoto going and Ohtani and Yamamoto just being two, and I think this is underplayed in Japan, but I mean, it wasn't like the Dodgers said, we got these two guys, we're done. They brought in those guys were just on the front of the ramp walking up onto the ship. There was a host of guys. Tyler Glasnow, Teoscar Hernandez were all there, and then they got Tommy Edman. They really they left no stone unturned for talent.
Absolutely,
this year. So there was a feeling, and I felt that in Seoul, that Japanese people are like going, don't they have enough? And I don't know why that is, but I think people in Japan don't understand the way MLB works, that there's like 6 teams that really, really, really want to compete.
Yeah.
And maybe 10 teams that want to compete if everything goes right, and maybe 6 teams that are willing to compete if everything really, really goes right. Another 6 teams going, yeah, who cares?
Yeah.
So they don't really get that. And so when they see the Dodgers doing all that, they think, isn't that too much? They're too strong. My wife was saying, oh, they're too strong. It's boring. And I said, baseball's really hard. You can be the strongest. You can win 110 games and still not play in the World Series. So, yeah, there's that sentiment. But on the other hand, Ohtani is such a magnet. Yamamoto is a tremendous, unique talent, but Shohei Ohtani's charisma is off the charts, and people want to see him do well. I want to see all the Japanese guys do well because I watched them over here. I'm weird, when the U.S. plays Japan in the WBC, who I'm cheering for. It's the place I've lived for most of my life.
I will say it'd be very interesting as far as what my rooting interest. It'd be very complicated. Let's just put it that way for the next WBC with these Japanese players. I mean, because we're so tied in with them now, it'd be difficult to watch. It'd be hard to watch. It'd be hard to decide who to root for. But
it'll be fun.
It will be great for the game. It'll be great for the game. That's no doubt about that. But Jim, we thank you so much for joining us, taking the time. You're burning that midnight oil out in Tokyo for us, and we appreciate you so much joining us here on Dodgers Dugout Live on Dodgers Nation. Jim, we'll catch up with you soon. Hopefully after Roki Sasaki signs, we'll maybe talk again. And we really, really appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, there he goes, Jim Allen. You guys can follow him. I'll drop all of his info, all of his links to his Twitter, his website. If you guys want to know more about the NPB, this is your guy. So be sure to follow Jim Allen. But that's going to do it for this episode of Dodgers Dugout Live. My name is Doug McKain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. Until next time, think blue, bleed blue, and I'm out.